You've probably seen this video floating around, Cyberpunk 2077 with some photoreal and really lifelike looking mods. Now, like, sure, there's tons of videos out there claiming to make games look lifelike, but this is one of the rare instances where it actually looks lifelike, so much so that even several of the developers behind Cyberpunk 2077 have commented on it. So today, I'm going to show you how to create this exact same experience for yourself because, yes, I managed to get my own Cyberpunk 2077 to look pretty damn lifelike, and you can too. Although it's going to cost you. Because unfortunately, at least as of right now, this look isn't free. So even beyond just this photorealistic look that you've seen going viral all over, I'm going to show you several other ways you could turn Cyberpunk 2077 into more of a visual masterpiece. So this original video that's been going around comes from Next Gen Dreams, and they actually have several more videos just like it, making Cyberpunk 2077 just look absolutely photoreal. And one of the key components of what's making this look possible is Nova LUT. If anything, it's almost doing most of the heavy lifting here. This is a new mod that just dropped a couple of weeks ago, but its release is leading to many ditching their old visual setups for Cyberpunk and actually switching to this new one. So you have a lot of veterans that have been modding Cyberpunk in one way for years that are now modding it in a completely different way because this mod's that good. And even with just Nova LUT alone, this definitely makes Night City look more realistic. It's going to turn down the bloom of the city. So instead of things looking unrealistically warm, you'll find a Night City with cooler tones. It can definitely be harsher, but it also feels just a bit more lifelike. And I think you can see that most evidently with this sunrise scene, where the vanilla visuals are fun, but the modded ones are just a lot closer to how this would actually look. But even on its own, Nova LUT looks fantastic. It is one of those rare mods that excels at both day and night. Compared to vanilla Cyberpunk, I think with Nova LUT, nighttime signs don't pop quite as much. But really, this is most obvious because I'm showing you comparison shots. As you actually play around with this mod during nighttime, it has a really nice aesthetic, and those signs will still stand out to a really nice degree. And in just typical gameplay as you're adventuring around Night City, even with just this mod and basically nothing else, you can get your game looking pretty realistic and fantastic. When you're playing with this one, there'll definitely be moments where you just stop and are like, damn, this looks great. But of course, you don't just want your Cyberpunk 2077 looking great, you want it looking photoreal. But the next step to get there will cost you. To achieve the look I have here, this will require Photorealistic reshade. You can get this right now on Next Gen Dreams Patreon behind a $7 a month tier. But don't fret, because later in this video I'll have some awesome free alternatives if you decide that $7 a month is just not worth it. This Photorealistic reshade is meant to be used with Nova LUT, and it's actually going to build off of many of the changes. You can see here in these comparison shots, comparing the Photorealistic reshade with Nova LUT, the game will be brightened up quite a bit, while also implementing a very intense depth of field. You can see it most prominently here past these buildings as this heavy blur rolls in with the reshade on top now. And sure, with this photoreal reshade, things look good, but I'm sure some of you are sitting here perplexed. These shots barely look better, and even if you compare them to vanilla Cyberpunk 2077, they don't really look photoreal at all, just different. Well, what I found is that when you add the photorealistic reshade on top, things truly come alive as you're moving around, and these still comparisons don't really do it justice at all. And you see it quite clearly here. Just simply looking around and turning will actually bring to life that depth of field change, and that combined with some of the other visual changes make this look pretty amazing. Particularly when you walk up to objects like cars and let the depth of field take over, this mod will really start to shine. Like as I stand here looking at this quadra, the game looks absolutely incredible, and even just looking down this city street, it genuinely feels alive. You can set up some specific scenes to almost trick your brain into making this look better though. For example, I found when there are a lot of opportunities for depth to be presented, like here with so many objects in the close distance to medium distance to also far distance, things begin to look shockingly lifelike, with the depth of field doing a ton of heavy lifting here as it's basically tricking your brain into making this look more realistic due to the blurriness. Hey, my psychology degree and all those perception classes are finally coming in handy. And as you could probably tell, at moments like this, the game genuinely looks like real life. Almost everything comes together perfectly. And that is why so many of these showcases of this mod begin with a slow walk up to a vehicle with some cloudy weather in the background. That's really the conditions where this looks best and where you could really start to encroach on lifelike visuals. But as soon as you get into the car and start to drive around, the facade definitely degrades a bit. I don't think you're convincing anyone that this is real life, even though this looks remarkably good. But even with that in mind, this mod blew me away several times just during normal Cyberpunk gameplay, not doing anything super specific, and it made the game look absolutely fantastic. Some moments you could just stop and look out at the city and it looks freaking phenomenal. Some of the extra lighting changes from the mod doing the heavy lifting here, and also adding a couple of custom vehicle mods on top, like with the G63 AMG you've been seeing, will really help sell things more. But if you're attentive, you're probably starting to notice some of the specific quirks of this mod combination, as there are several things you'll need to keep in mind if you want your Cyberpunk looking lifelike. As I have a feeling for a lot of you, as you see things right now, you're not going to want to actually play this way. A big chunk of what makes things look so lifelike is the incredibly strong depth of field from this mod, but that comes with some gigantic trade-offs. You probably noticed that I haven't shown all that much driving around or even combat, and that's because it's going to be super blurry. This intense depth of field makes most driving yield a blurred out car, and most combat yield a blurred out weapon. Sometimes when you get up close to somebody so things focus much closer to you, they'll come back in focus, but the vast majority of the time, yeah, your car's going to be blurry. And where this becomes somewhat game-changing is as you start to introduce some of the UI elements back on, because almost all of these are going to be blurred, and loading save games definitely becomes slightly more difficult with this reshade. And while using a reshade for Cyberpunk, you're not able to use frame generation fully, you'll have to set FPS limits. But thankfully, there is an alternative version of this mod. There's a lower depth of field version that vastly improves functionality, no more blurry cars, and your HUD will largely stay in focus now, even creating some pretty epic moments like with this Honda Vision N mod that looks absolutely incredible. But at the same time, when you use the lower depth of field version, things still look great, but it's definitely a toned down version on those photoreal visuals. Functionality with this version is through the roof, but some of the visuals definitely take a hit. But even beyond some of the obvious negatives from the depth of field alone, there are also just some general lighting quirks here. You'll notice several interiors just look different. It doesn't necessarily look better or worse, it's going to be a preference thing, but it definitely looks quite a bit more different compared to how Cyberpunk looks by default. And weathers outside of fog or nighttime definitely look worse to me compared to vanilla Cyberpunk. This sunny weather is fine, but there are definitely quite a few other mods that I prefer the sunny weather with compared to this one. So I would describe this as a very specific type of mod combo. Some people love this aesthetic and how insanely photoreal you can get your game to look at points, but it definitely comes with some baggage. I mean, literally, it'll cost you money, but also several of the other quirks I've described to you. Thankfully, there are a lot of fish in the sea, and many other visual mods for Cyberpunk 2077 are available right now. And one initial mod that I think will appeal to a lot of you is the high-res graphics pack. This actually isn't an individual mod, but instead a Nexus collection. If you've never installed a collection, the way this works is all of these mods included will be automatically downloaded and ordered for you. So you just click a few buttons and everything will be installed nicely as long as you have Nexus Premium. This does have a monthly fee associated with it, but if you're downloading mods frequently, you may have bought this already. It is pretty handy in its own right. But once installed, this is a near perfect base layer for Cyberpunk 2077. It'll upscale the textures of many things, such as other NPCs, then that's easily one of the biggest aspects of this mod. Many NPCs have higher quality textures, and you'll really notice this in the details. Like some of their tattoos just look a lot better, a lot higher fidelity, or if they have details on their face, those individual details will look a lot better. I would say that's the majority of this mod, but other things are impacted. Some of the roads in the game get an HD upgrade, as well as several aspects of V's apartment will look better. But one of the best new visual mods to release that you could add on top of this is Gits 3.0, which just came out a couple of weeks ago. This mod brings visuals from Ghost in the Shell to Cyberpunk 2077, which in reality, the biggest thing you'll notice is the increased contrast. Some scenes in Night City are now incredibly dark, obviously when you're playing at nighttime, but just in general I notice a bit of a darker tone for the game. But then the lights that contrast that scene are going to pop almost more than any other mod I've seen. So exploring around at nighttime particularly creates this beautiful landscape that's illuminated by Night City neon. There's of course also a rain component to this one, as it is based off of Ghost in the Shell, so you have some overhauled rain visuals, and I really noticed some of the highlights of the city were brighter. Like the base tone might have been a bit darker, but things will just pop a lot more. So of course, mods like this are always going to be incredibly subjective, but with this mod in particular, if you like most of what you're seeing, but you think it needs a few tweaks that may be available already, there are actually several variants of Gits, and I'm just showing you the main one here, but there are several others with certain things turned up or down. But if Ghost in the Shell is not your movie of choice, perhaps you just like Cyberpunk 2077. One of my personal favorite visual mods is the E3 2018 lighting mod, which will attempt to bring the visuals much closer to what we saw during the 48-minute gameplay from E3 2018. I was fortunate enough to be there in person when this was shown, and it really just holds a special place in my heart. The video I made about this going semi-viral and paying for the entire E3 trip definitely helped that, but partially I just think this is one of the best looking versions of Cyberpunk we've ever seen. This mod will make the colors of Night City a bit softer. That bloom and warmness is once again cut down in favor of some colder and, in my opinion, some more realistic looking colors, but you still have that familiar neon sign pop, and if thus far you have really liked the visuals of this one, you'll probably also want to add on the the Project E3 HUD mod, which will be a near comprehensive overhaul for the in-game HUD, this too in the style of the E3 demos. This one being more of a hybrid of 2018 and 2019. But with that in mind, if you're looking to upgrade your Cyberpunk 2077 even further with mods, check out this video for some of the best new releases available right now.